Blablaswing, 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 Blablaswing. Hello swing dancers, it's Julien for Blablaswing, and today I have the pleasure to be with Abeth. Hello Abeth, can you tell us some few words about you?
Yes, so I live in Portugal. I live in Lisbon. I've been in Lisbon for about 5 years. In Porto, I was living there for about 10 years, but I'm originally from Los Angeles, from California. So yeah, I went from one ocean to another ocean.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but so, I mean, I guess that's the basic thing about me is I'm an American living in Portugal. And I don't know, I guess we're going to get into more stuff as we go. But
Yeah. It's a long way between Los Angeles and Lisbon. We are now talking in Lisbon in August. It's really hot outside.
yeah.
What brings you in Europe at the first time?
Yeah, that's quite a story because it was very. I jumped around a little bit. So, I'm from Los Angeles, but I lived up in the Bay Area. So that's near San Francisco. I didn't live in San Francisco, but close by. I lived there for some years, and that's actually where I started swing dancing. And so, and I was working there for a few years, and what I was doing, I wanted to have something different, a different experience. And I had always wanted to go abroad and, have other ways of seeing the world and other feelings, to live. And so I actually ended up in Morocco. I was living in I lived in Casablanca for a year. I was teaching because the last thing I was doing in California was teaching primary school.
Okay.
I did that for a few years at a private school. And I got offered a job to teach at the American school in Casablanca. And so I went there for a year. And that is actually, I had already been swing dancing, but that is actually where it gave me the opportunity to be closer to Europe. And I went to, after that year, I went to Harang dance camp for the first time. And during that year, I think I went to Barcelona in one of the very first editions of Barcelona. And so I actually got this feeling of like I wanted to stay on this side of the world for a little bit longer, but I realized I didn't want to be in Morocco more. And so I actually, I did my course to teach English. So it's a month-long course. I did that in Greece on the island of Crete. And so I lived there for a month. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. Here I am. I don't have a job. And let's see what happens. And it was just this, synchronicities in life. Somebody that I knew who knew of a possible job in Portugal, teaching English at a school in Porto. And so funnily enough, I came to Portugal from Greece by car. So,
Long journey.
it was crazy. And it was almost nonstop. So it was really, really insane. I didn't see much except for the highway. But yeah, so I came out to Portugal with an idea that maybe I'd have a job teaching English at a language school in Porto. Maybe not. It was kind of unsure. But the good thing was, as I was coming by car with somebody who had meetings in like Barcelona and meetings in other places. He said, well, I can drop you off anywhere on the way to Portugal, or I can leave you in Portugal, or I can drop you anywhere along the way back, or you just come back to Greece. So it was like there was nothing to lose, really.
Okay.
It was like going for a road trip that wasn't very, there was a very like determined road trip. There was no going and seeing very many things, but it was, there was nothing to lose. And so I came out to Portugal. And something in me when I saw the Atlantic Ocean, actually, when I was in Porto and I saw the area of Porto called Foz, which is the part where the river meets the sea. And I just fell in love with that view. And I was like, something feels right about trying it here. And so I decided to stay in Porto and see if the job there actually would open up. It was a possibility. They weren't sure if they were going to have a spot or not. And so I said goodbye to my ride, and I, took the risk, and I ended up getting the job teaching English at this school, and I stayed there for about 9 years. Yeah. Crazy.
Yes.
Well, what's crazy is like I remember when I first got to Portugal and people would say, you know, after the first year, people, because my idea was, okay, live in Portugal for a year, then go, like I had wanted to go to Croatia, Italy, like I had other places where I wanted to go, and things to do, people to see, you know, life to live. And I remember people that I met in Portugal saying, oh, you're going to be here for 10 years, you're going to see. And I was like, no, I'm not. Of course I'm not. And you know, lo and behold, it's been 16 or 17 years now, so here I am still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Yeah, and part of it was the starting of the dance scene in Portugal really kept me here, too.
Yeah. And you speak very well Portuguese now.
I think you have to ask somebody else. No, I mean, I speak, that's what I speak here. I speak Portuguese all the time, and I live my life in Portuguese, but... you know, there's always further to go and, you know, to improve.
Yeah, sure, but...
I can feel that, you know, there's but I live my life in Portuguese. Yeah.
I don't know how you do that, because for me, it's really, really difficult. The pronunciation is like, it's hell on earth.
It's really hard to understand in the beginning.
Yeah.
I remember when I first arrived here, I remember passing the border from Spain into Portugal, you know, up in the north. And I was looking at the signs, you know, I was reading signs all along the way of this road trip. And I was like, okay, that looks similar to Spanish, but it's not Spanish. And I would try to read it, and I would read it out as if it were Spanish. I grew up in Southern California. I don't know Spanish, but Spanish is all around you. So, you know, you kind of know how to say the words, at least how to read the words in Spanish. And then when I actually got to Porto and heard people speaking Portuguese, I was like, I don't have a clue. Yeah. I don't know what they're saying. And then all you hear to start out with, because it's a very closed vowel language. So you hear like, and that's all you think is happening. It's really...
And just to say no, there is the thing with the nose.
No. Yeah. It's very nasal language,
yes, exactly. And I discovered this part, it's really difficult.
Yeah, it's a tricky... I think that's, you know, I have an American mouth. You know, you grow up with a certain way that your mouth is shaped from childhood. Exactly. And like my mouth doesn't easily do all of the Portuguese sounds. And so, I stumble here and there because it's tricky. But I'm fluent in the language.
You like challenges. So have you started to dance in California before?
Yes.
Before to go in Europe?
Yes. So, I mean, now when I look back, I'm really sad that I didn't start when I was younger in Los Angeles.
Oh, me too.
No, but not just because when I was younger, but because if I had started when I was living in LA, I would have met all of these old timers. Yeah. Because, you know, people like, you know, I have friends back there who know the old timers and talk about them. And I've met a couple of them. Actually, you know, when I would go visit there the last years, there were a few that I met, and you know, it's really special to have that connection with some of them, and you just feel like, okay, this is the energy, the original energy. Of course, it's different because as they're much older, they're not, you know, dancing in the same way, but you have somebody there like telling you how it is, you know, telling you to get your feet closer, telling you to, you know, do certain things, and
they told you that.
Yeah, I mean, in the Balboa room.
The
name is not coming to me.
No, maybe?
No. He did pure bal. He wasn't a Blablaswing dancer. Dean Raftery. I met him and I talked to him. Like he would there was a girl who would bring him to the Balboa room at Atomic Ballroom, and he would hang out and he would watch people, and sometimes he would get up and he would move a little bit. You know, over the few years that I was going there to visit and I would see him, I saw him, you know, going downhill. Like he became less and less mobile. Okay. But he would sit there and, you know, he's the one that invented the back pivot in Balboa. So anytime anybody wanted to kind of show off their back pivot and see what he would say, you know, kind of dancing in front of him and do a back pivot. And he would always be like, get your feet closer, feet more close together. Keep you know, and things like, you know, the DJ would put on a gypsy jazz song, and he'd be like, "What is this? This is Charleston. This is not Balboa." You know? And then somebody, you know, I remember there's a song that he asked for once that became a song that I love, and now the name, of course, is escaping me because I just haven't put my brain in these things for a while. Yeah. But I mean, I remember him requesting a song once, and I was like, "Wow, that is a good song." And so it became one that I always DJ'd when I DJ'd for Balboa. But yeah, just having that connection, and he remembered me as the Portuguese girl, even though I'm not Portuguese, but, you know, and so that was something that as I realized the depth and the wealth of what was in Los Angeles at the time that I was living there, now it makes me sad that I wasn't part of that, you know. But, you know, life is what it is, and I started dancing in Oakland. So when I was in my early 20s, I started about 2000. It was around that time that swing dancing was becoming a bit more known again. It was like there was this craze of the
Gap commercial.
The Gap commercial, and like the neo swing bands, and, you know, Jump Jive and Wail, and like, you know, they'd
Swing
go
Kids,
the movie Swing Kids,
Malcolm X seconds with a dance inside.
Yeah. All of that stuff was like, oh my God, I want to do that, you know, and I love dancing anyway. And so a friend of mine and I, who used to go dancing at the clubs in San Francisco, like, you know, house dance, you know, we used to go to the clubs together. And then we were like, oh, well, we should learn how to swing dance because that looks fun. So we started doing swing dance classes in the East Bay, so east of San Francisco. I think we were going to Berkeley at first. I don't remember where we went at first, but somewhere on the eastern side. And we were learning East Coast swing, which is the 6 counts of Lindy Hop. It's basically you just take the 6. It's like jive, except for it's not up in the air, like, you know, ballroom jive. But it's the 6 counts. And so we were learning that. And they were like, okay, we've got the moves. We got some basic moves. We've had a few classes. Let's go out to the clubs in San Francisco, and let's, you know, because these bands were playing. LaVey Smith and the Red Hot Skillet Lickers, they were one of the big bands that was playing every now and again. I'm not remembering all. Royal Crown Review. Like, there would be these different bands that would play. And so you'd go to these really tiny clubs sometimes in San Francisco, and you'd catch these bands. And then people were not dancing what I was dancing. Like, I'd get asked to dance, and I'd be so excited, and I'd get up and start to dance, and then I felt like shit because I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but because I felt like I don't know what I'm doing. You know, I've been taking these classes and I have no clue what on earth are they doing, and they'd be doing these weird things that didn't feel at all what I was learning in class. And so I started going, well, hey, there's something wrong here. And then that's when I started hearing the word Lindy Hop in these venues. And then I would be, you know, I'm a big observer. I watch people a lot, and I would just sit and watch, you know, and I'd be like, okay, I see. I couldn't figure out exactly what they were doing. I couldn't figure out enough to like be confident to do it, but I could see where it was different, and I could see like, okay, there's something else going on here, and, you know, and then it was just, it was a friend of a friend. Because I would go to the park in San Francisco. I don't know if they're still doing it nowadays with the COVID situation, but for years, I mean, for decades, these 2 or 3 friends would take music to Golden Gate Park on Sunday mornings, and they would have Lindy in the Park every Sunday morning.
Do you have an idea of how much video I've watched on
Really?
I learned so much with this one.
From Lindy in the Park in San Francisco?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because if maybe I'm wrong.
From more recently?
No, it's on YouTube. There is
I had no clue.
big
Really?
channel with a quite old woman, blonde hair, and she have a very instructive video with a lot of people behind her, and
Wow.
I think it's called Lindy Hop on the Park.
Okay, I don't know about it. I don't know, but I'm not.
We will check.
Afterwards, we'll need to see if it's the same one. At the time, I mean, when I was there wasn't YouTube, so.
Yeah, but maybe we can see you on the video.
I don't know, But yeah, I started going there just to watch them because I mean, it was such a happy vibe, you know. It was so much joy coming out of that little area of people just enjoying, and the music. I mean, I loved the music. Just absolutely loved jazz, and I didn't grow up with jazz, but I grew up loving old films. Like there was something I think it was every Friday evening they would do the Friday Film Festival on Channel 5 or something like that in LA. And I just loved catching the films where, especially when they were kind of musicals or like, you know, crazy Jerry Lewis films, or, you know, Esther Williams swimming to music, you know, all the synchronized. I mean, I just loved watching all these kinds of things. And so, you know, I'd get that music and I get that feeling, and something in it just really touched me. And so, yeah, I would sit in the park on Sundays and I would watch them dance, wanting to do it, but being really too shy and insecure to go out there, because I knew that I didn't know, you know. And I wasn't sure how to know, because I didn't really know yet where the Lindy Hop, how to really learn Lindy Hop. And some guy, a friend of a friend, recognized me sitting there, and he came over and he was like, "Hey, you're Abeth, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, I'm a friend of Jim's." And okay. And he said, "Yeah, you should learn. You should come dance." And I was like, I don't know how to dance. But I mean, I want to learn. Do you know where I could learn? And so he gave me the names of Paul Overton and Sharon Ash, who ran the 920 special in San Francisco. They're the ones that started the 920 special way back when, you know. But I don't know how old it was by the time I started going there. But they were big name teachers at the time. They were the big names from California that would go to Harangue dance camp, you know, along with Rob and Diane, and So, you know. But at the time I didn't know. I mean, I'm a baby in the scene. I just know, like, here are some teachers, and they've been recommended to me that they're the best teachers around. Take classes from them, and so I signed up. I was like, of course I'm going to take it. And
they were your first teacher.
They were my first teachers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Paul nicknamed me A Train. He always called me A Train, and I just love. I mean, that was like the highlight of the week, was to go to class. And I was taking classes in Oakland at the time because I lived on the East Bay. And so I would take classes in Oakland once a week. And then I would go dance at 920 Special on Thursdays. And I was teaching primary school. So, I mean, I had to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. But I just was like, okay, all I have to do is stay, like, Thursday night, I can stay out really late because I just need to make it through Friday. Like, I just need to be able to get the kids through Friday, and then I'll be okay. So yeah, I was like addicted. I'd go, you know, it's that thing that happens to all of us, because there's a real like vibe that you feel alive because the dance and the music matches your heartbeat, you know. And so there's just a way that you sense that there's an aliveness in this dance and in this music that touches you in the core of who you are. There's a freedom in it that touches you in the core of where you want to be free, you know, where you want to be connected to yourself and to your own rhythm and then connect to other people because it's communal. And so it's very, you know, addictive. So I became one of those. And for example, I remember when one of my favorite albums, still one of my favorite albums, is Barbara Morrison at the 920 Special, which maybe some people have heard of, other people maybe have not. But I mean,
I've not.
Barbara Morrison. She's a musicologist from UCLA. I don't know if she's still there, but at the time from the University of California in Los Angeles. And she came up, the Donnelly brothers, Elliot, and I don't remember his brother's name. They put on, they were doing these different events and stuff around swing dancing and other things. And they put on an event with her at the 920 Special where they recorded a live album. Cool. And I remember I wanted to go, but like, you know, as a poor teacher, and so I was, you know, trying to not spend too much money here and there. And so I volunteered to work the door to be able to get into the concert. And so, you know, part of the time I was at the door hearing the music, and then other times I could go and dance. You know, we would take turns, of course, being at the door. And so I remember, like, when I listened to that album, I remember the feeling of being in I don't remember the name of the place, but it was just a beautiful hall where we had the dancing, and, you know, feeling this thing about, it was my first it was my first live concert when I was actually dancing Lindy Hop.
Yeah.
Like I'd been to these other concerts, but with not knowing Lindy Hop. So this was my first, like, now I know Lindy Hop, and now I can actually dance when other people are dancing, and not only stay in 6 count, you know, quick, slow. And so it's just, you know, I listened to that album and it still, you know, touches me in my, and she's just so full of soul. Like it's a beautiful album. So like I have really fond memories, but to be honest, I was only learning and dancing for about, not even a year before I left California and moved to Morocco.
Okay.
So it's not something that I broadcast very often because, you know, that was the extent of my you know, my education. Everything else has been a lot of self-taught stuff. I taught myself how to lead. I
Yes.
You know, I would.
Maybe you pass more time to learn in Europe than in US.
Yeah.
You about Iran, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly, because I left and I went to Morocco, and then of course in Morocco, at least at the time, I don't know if that's changed, but there was no swing dancing.
Not so much, but there is a French tentative. One time.
There was a festival there once, I heard.
Yeah, maybe, but there is a small workshop.
Okay.
I remember 2, Solène and Zuki. They were one time, and maybe the people from Montpellier go there one time.
Yeah, it was something like that. Maybe not a festival, but some kind of event I remember happened there. But I don't know if it's continued.
I have a question about the West Coast, the style of the dance, very unique. When you arrive in Europe, do you see some difference between the way the European dance Lindy Hop and your, even when you were in California, have you been dancing with people from New York, for example?
Well, it's like this. When I first came to Europe, I didn't know enough to feel any difference in styles.
Yeah.
You know, I was really a baby still. I mean, I maybe had classes for about 8 months, 9 months. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really know that much. So everything was like, okay, there's just, you know.
Maybe not enough experience yet to...
Yeah. And also, I mean, I was living in Morocco for a year, so I actually only danced in Barcelona one weekend. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that year living in Morocco, I danced in Harang. But, you know, so it was like, I was taking classes. I was a junkie for, you know, those 9 months or whatever it was. I don't remember now. And then I had like nothing, you know, in Morocco, except that there was a group of people who wanted to learn because I talked about it. Of course, that's what you do. You know, I love this thing. And so you talk about this thing that you love. And people were like, well, why don't you teach us? There was a small club of more like of Westerners who got together every, I don't know, week or something. And so there were a couple of times that I taught them what I knew. And actually I had a couple of friends from Lindy in the Park send me some, at the time, was it a VHS that they sent? Or maybe it was the beginning of CD-ROMs. So it was the beginning of when you started putting stuff on CD-ROMs. Mm-hmm. And so he sent me like some, you know, I still have them somewhere, of like these just clips that he put together so that I would have something to look at. And, you know, and I have, it's crazy what I have like still in VHS. So like these old cassettes of, you know, I have from Paul and Sharon, but I also have from other people of like way years ago. And so I just kind of would look at that stuff and like, wait, let me see what I could show people to do, some basic things. And so we just had fun, you know. I taught some people a few times at this club and it was just for fun. But other than that, I was very isolated from the dance until, well, for quite a while, because even when I moved to Portugal, nobody was dancing in Portugal either. So it was the same thing. I would dance when I got a chance to get out of the country, you know, maybe twice a year. So I always went to Harang, but the problem for me with Harang was that after the first year there, I started working full-time at Harang. So
Yeah.
I didn't do a whole lot of dancing for
lot
many
of job,
years.
yeah.
I was working a lot. It was, you know, I can easily fall into super slaving, and and Hareng it's a nonstop place. So if you're working there, and if you have a super slave kind of easily default, then it was easy to just work. And it was there were some years that I could count probably on one hand how many times I danced. So I was around everything, but I unfortunately didn't get to take full advantage of it like other people do. I saw behind the scenes stuff more, but yeah. So for a while I wasn't. In other words, I wouldn't have been able to tell you what the difference was at the time between California. And when we say California, we also have to differentiate, because, you know, LA is one thing, the Bay Area is completely different. Yeah. And even in LA, it's different. And especially now, like you can see, like now if you dance in LA, you can kind of see like who's learning with who. You know, you kind of see, you know, who learned from these people, who learned from that, because even there's kind of a different way of approaching the dance. Mm-hmm. And then you see the people who kind of, you know, learned some years ago and had contact with the old timers. And, you know, LA is a very unique, amazing place to dance. I really, really miss dancing in Southern California. Yeah, when I say LA, I want to say Southern California, because you have LA, you have Orange County, and they're quite different. Mm-hmm. But of course, people are going back and forth. So, I mean, you're dancing with some different styles, but it's very unique. And it's very unique also in the way that there's, you know, this is happening in Europe now more, kind of mixing up the styles. Mm. But in Southern California, that was pretty normal to, you know, be dancing Lindy in the middle of a dance, just let's do some bow, you know, and then break out until, you know, that was a bit more normal, depending on who you're dancing with, right? And depending on what they know or don't know. Or shag or whatever, yeah. It just, you know, there were always those dances growing up and living together. And there was always that kind of thing historically of like, you know, people stealing from, you know, when we're talking about the old timers, stealing a little bit from that, stealing a little from that. I mean, that's how we have bow swing, right? It's like you steal a little bit of bow when you have this dance called swing, and you put this in, and you know, so it's how these things kind of grew up. So, whereas, you know, in Europe, since things came in a much more like, you know, in general, first Lindy Hop happened, right? Yeah. And then later on Balboa. So exactly. It was just a different way of things kind of coming into being. Whereas at the time, since California was a place where those dances were happening in the original form, it was all happening at the same time. And it's very fascinating when you talk to some people in Southern California that are part of the Southern California Swing Association. I don't remember what it's called right now, but they're doing a lot of diving into the history around it, and it's really incredible to hear from the different points of view of, even in terms of, because different neighborhoods had different types of dancers. I mean, you had white dancers, you had black dancers, you had Latino dancers, you had, you know, and it's not that they didn't mix, they all kind of went out to these, but there was also very specific communities and specific ways of moving and specific ways of approaching music and dance and community. And so I think that's really unique and we don't know a lot about, you know, we know the few names of people who, you know, were able to make a name because whatever, they were winning competitions or whatever, but how many people we don't know who actually were an extremely important part of the dance, because we're talking about, you know, how many people were dancing at that time. It was just so many people were dancing way back in the day. You know, of course, we know about Dean Collins, because Dean Collins was the one that was teaching all of the dancers Lindy Hop, you know, bringing it from New York and teaching the dancers Lindy Hop, but essentially the dancers who would go on films, right? And of course that trickled down, but you know, there's so many people, I'm sure, that were creating innovations in the dance, because that's just the nature of it, is you grab things from here, you grab things from there, you watch that person, you try that, you know, but they didn't happen maybe to make it, maybe they didn't continue dancing up until the point that we started investigating these things, you know? How many like 15-year-olds were out there being crazy and dancing and being amazing that stopped dancing maybe when they were 30, you know what I'm saying? So I think there's a richness in the history that's still to be dug, and there are some people that are digging into it a little bit. So it'll be curious to see what comes out in their historical research. But yeah, it's excuse me, it's very unique. And I mean, I've danced in New York once. I can't speak to it very well because I don't remember so well. But you know, all of these places in the States all grew up with their very unique accents. You know, there is an accent to the dance. And we can feel that in Europe too. If you dance in France, it's one thing, then if you dance in Spain, then if you dance in Portugal. So we feel that in a way. And at the same time, you know, we're seeing something in the world of dance that's not unique to the world of dance, and it's the homogenization of culture, you know, and that's just the world over. And anything that you look at in the world, there's homogenization on a grand scale now. Because, you know, the good thing about YouTube is people can learn wherever they are. The downside of that is we all end up kind of with the same homogenized McDonald's accent to whatever we're doing, you know, and so unless you have people who continue to innovate and continue, you know, and I think there's a place for historically digging. I'm a traditionalist, but I'm not a purist. So I'm a person who really appreciates and investigates and needs to see what the roots are. But I'm a little bit of an anarchist too. So I believe that, you know, there's room in anything that we do, and not just the dance. There should always be room for tradition and innovation. Don't forget where you came from. Like, that's so important. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget the roots of this dance, the roots of this music. Don't forget the people who often risk their lives to play this music. Often risk their lives, literally. Who, you know, couldn't share hotel rooms with, you know, with white people. Who couldn't, you know, who could play on stage but couldn't be out in the foyer of the place where they had played. You know, there's a historical reference to this music and to this dance that is very important that we keep in mind. And the freedom and the call and the hunger for an expression of freedom that this music and this dancing represents, that I think always needs to stay in our spirit and in our consciousness, like to not take for granted what we're doing. And yet at the same time, innovation has always been a part of both this music and this dance. Like, jazz is about innovation. Jazz is about expressing your unique voice on top of a structure, a communal structure. So you have something that's like a solid base of like, this is where we are, people. This is where we are. This is where we're coming from. This is our beat.
Exactly.
But you innovate on top of that with your unique voice because you are a unique part of the collective.
I like the image you give of jazz. It's cool. It's pretty much what I have in my mind too. And do you start to practice or learn Balboa too at this time, or it was in Europe maybe?
Yeah, it was much later. So actually, I did maybe a couple of things of Balboa here in Europe, but then what actually happened to me, it was Nate Zupan from Slovenia,
right,
who started really getting into Balboa, and we sometimes taught together at Lindy Hop, and so he would show me some things. You know, because it's one of those things that if you get to a certain level in one dance, it's on the one hand, it's not hard to pick up another. On the other hand, it's very hard to get rid of your habits from the other dance and to learn to be in the same in the new language, right? And but so I was picking up some stuff, but I was dancing Balboa as a Lindy Hopper, you know. And then what happened to me is in 2014, after Harang, I went to, because that was my life, is to go 12 summers in a row to go to Harang to work. And I went to California to visit my family for a couple of weeks, and I ended up having a pulmonary embolism. So I had a thrombosis, a deep vein thrombosis in my leg that turned into a pulmonary embolism that luckily my father caught before I flew back here to Europe so that I didn't die. But what happened is, like, I got stuck in California for some months to recover. Yeah. You know, I couldn't fly. I couldn't do a long haul flight. I mean, for a while I couldn't even walk. You know, I could hardly breathe. So I stayed in the States. I ended up staying for about 4 months. I probably needed about 2 to be able to come back, but I wanted to be pretty sure. And to be honest, I really needed a break from work in a certain way. Not just from work, from I needed a break to get, I realized that actually that whole thing was my body telling me to slow down and to have a look at life and to reevaluate some things in my life. So I ended up staying in California for 4 months. And during that time, when I was able to start breathing again and then walking and then dancing, I couldn't really dance Lindy Hop, but I could dance Balboa. And then I just started taking all of the classes that I could take. So I was learning essentially, like my main teachers were Jeremy and Laura.
Mm-hmm.
So I was taking, yeah. Yeah, I mean, sadly, I couldn't take more classes from them, but I was having weekly or twice a week sometimes classes from them. I'm good friends with Jacob Wigger, and so I took some, I took some classes with him. He and Shawnee were sometimes teaching some classes at the time. And then, I don't know if you know about them or not, but it's also some badass dancers who are not around as much internationally, but Chris and Beth Grover are really incredible dancers, very unique. I look at Chris as like the Fred Astaire of Balboa. He's really has a very delicate, beautiful way of moving, and I mean they're very like unique LA style, and they learned from the old timers.
Yeah.
So they're very linked to the old timers, and and you can see it also in their Lindy Hop. Like, Beth is badass in her swivels. She is just like, I love watching them dance. So fun, and so fun to dance with them. With Chris mostly I've danced with, but so I had some classes with them. Though essentially it was with those people that I learned mostly from, and then I went to California Balboa Classics. So learning with all the best. And so I just drank as much as I could of Balboa in those months. And then I came back to Europe. And so then I was back in the same, paradigm that I've kind of always been in, is that I'm on my own and I've just got to figure it out, And so it's a lot of just working on my own and getting workshops when I can. But yeah, I had out of an unlucky event came this, good fortune of being able to learn from some of the best in the world for my, and to dance with some incredible dancers. I mean, there's a lot of incredible no name, in quotes, dancers in Southern California who are just fabulous to dance with. And it's just social dancing in Southern California is going to dance school. Like, just social dancing, you learn so much. Augie Freeman, and just a bunch of people there that are just fantastic. And so that's when in 2014 was when I delved more into Balboa. And then as I had hip problems and became harder to dance Lindy Hop, I realized, okay, Balboa is probably a good thing for me now. But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard because it's been a long time. I haven't social danced for about a year now, or more. I haven't.
You're not alone.
So yeah, I know. It's a lot of people, but yeah. So I know some people have continued as they've had fixed partners or whatnot, but not for me. So it feels like I won't even know how to take a rock step. It's like, there's a feeling of that. I mean, I've been doing jazz. I've been teaching jazz classes all this time and loving it. So that's been fabulous. But yeah, the partner dancing has kind of left my life, at least for the moment. I don't believe it's going to be forever, but who knows?
Yeah. And what situation do you find when you decide to stay in Portugal? Is there some dance scene at the time, or
no,
nothing?
There was nothing. No, nothing like that.
Create everything because you were the only one.
Yeah, as far as I know, I was the only. I've never met anybody else that was dancing. I mean, the only people I know dancing Lindy Hop in Portugal learned either from me or from the people that I taught. So I don't think that there was anybody else that knew, unless they're like in the woodwork somewhere and they hidden. But I mean, when I started talking to people about Lindy Hop, of course it was a big joke. Like, lollipop? What are you talking about? Nobody had heard about it. Nobody knew anything about it. And so you're like, a swing dance. Oh, swing. Oh, like, sexy swing. Like, that was sex. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's really tricky at the beginning to try to even talk about it because people had this, no clue whatsoever. So yeah, I started. I remember it was a friend that I met. It was actually the first friend I made in Portugal was a guy I met at the swimming pool. And he would try to, because I would tell him about it and he would be like, Abeth, you should teach people. If nobody knows how to do it, you should teach, you know? And I was like, how am I going to be a teacher? I'm not a teacher. I barely know anything. You know, I already told you, it was like 8 or 9 months that I took classes. And then I would go to some workshops in harangue, you know? How the hell would I do something like that? You know, and he would bug me, you know, for 2 or 3 years he bugged me. Or, you know, it was about 4 years after I had come to Portugal that I finally just got fed up of traveling, you know, paying all this money to travel to go to a festival. And coming back and being like, and now what? You know? Do you want, you know, nothing, there's nothing to do.
I can't imagine your frustration all the time.
It was so like, it was so limiting.
You know what? I've learned a move, nobody?
Yeah.
No, nobody? No,
yeah,
okay.
Not even a triple step, you know, nothing. And so I got to a point where I knew that like either I had 2 choices. Friggin' forget it, you know, leave it behind. It was beautiful. I loved it, but you know, it's not part of my life anymore. Or teach people how to dance. I don't know if I even considered moving because of the dance. I don't know. I think sometimes I considered that, but something in me just never allowed me to leave Portugal for some reason. You know? And I guess there was a reason for that. But so I came to that conclusion. Like I either start doing something, or I just got to forget about it because it's just too painful. You know, I'm being very dramatic. Too painful. I mean, there are other painful things in life, but it's hard when like something that you love and then you can't actually do it except for like twice a year. And so I was taking tap classes at the time. With his name is Michel he's French but living in Lisbon, but he would go to Porto once a week to teach classes. And so I started kind of talking to my tap colleagues, classmates about it, because, you know, if you like tap, you're open to that kind of,
exactly.
You know,
more than more now. A lot of you can hear the Portuguese police. It's like it's like in USA pretty much like in a TV show or in the movies.
Yeah, exactly. Watch out.
But it's Europe, and it's more and more the Lindy hoppers now start to teach
start to take tap, yeah,
because they go back to the roots.
Yeah.
More and more.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, both of those dances exist at the same time. You know, you watch Frankie, a lot of Frankie's moves, jazz moves were, you know, coming from tap stuff. So, you know, and Frankie's son, Chaz, is a tap dancer. Like that whole time those dances were all happening at the same time, right? And even Frankie talks about, you know, that all the Lindy Hoppers wanted to go to the movies to watch the Nicholas brothers so that they could steal ideas and, you know, come and pretend, you know, with their beautiful hands that they were the Nicholas brothers, you know, because they had such elegance dancing, you know. I got to meet Fayard Nicholas, and even in his old age, he spoke with his hands. It was he just captivated you. This little guy, you know, so short, but just brilliant eyes, sharp person, incredible aura, you know, and he spoke with his hands. It was beautiful. And so so I talked to the people in tap class, you know, hey, I'm doing this thing, you know, it could be cool if we all try to I miss dancing. I wish somebody here would dance. And I showed them the videos I had. YouTube was kind of just starting, and so I remember that one of the girls, I was able to convince her because I showed her Sky, and she was like, okay, he's cool. This looks cool. I could do that. You know, and so, but there wasn't a lot yet, I think, to show. It was kind of the beginnings of YouTube, if I remember correctly. And this was back in 2007. And so in the beginnings of like dancing being on YouTube. Yeah. But, and so, so they were like, yeah, let's do it. Why not? Fun. It looks fun. And so I was like, okay, shit, now where do I start? How do I? So I have actually DVDs. This is a little known fact, but I'm going to share it. That Ryan and Jenny made Lindy Hop DVDs way back in the day, and I had them. And I was like, okay, these guys know what they're talking about, right? And so why don't I just... I'm just going to follow their curriculum, so to speak. I'm going to follow the order of the DVDs. And that's what I did, because I didn't know where to start from. I had no clue. And so I just was like, okay. And I think they started with the swing out, if I remember correctly. It's like the swing out was the first thing. And then there was the RJ was the name that they called it, the Ryan and Jenny, or the reverse jerk. Then there was like the Texas Tommy. And then I was going, so I mean, you starting with the swing out. It's like, I think that was the first thing on the DVD. And so here we go, guys. Bam, swing out. But you know what? I mean, I have to say that the dancers the people who started with me originally, I mean, I have not seen since then a group of beginners that I've been able to take so quickly.
Yeah. So maybe it's a good method?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it had to do with there was a lot of motivation.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to one of them, Ugo, some months ago, and he was saying he thinks it's also because I was dancing with all of them all the time. Yeah. So it's like they all had access to me. Not that I was an amazing dancer, but I knew more. So they were, and then I was always going out to workshops. So as soon as like it started with a small group, and then it was like, well, this needs to grow, otherwise it's not so fun, even though we were having tons of fun between us. And so I started doing workshops, and then I started doing regular classes, and like any money that came in just paid for me to go away to get workshops and lessons and privates or whatever. I don't know if at the time I wasn't doing that many privates, but workshops. I would, go to Snowball before it was Snowball that we know, there weren't so many workshops as nowadays, can see, or festivals. But I would go to all of the ones that I could, and I would come back with ideas, and I would come back with, and little by little, I am a teacher. I know that. I've known that since I was a kid. And that I'm here to be a teacher and a facilitator and a guide of people's processes. And so I have a natural way that I kind of create curriculum, or create structure, a foundational learning. And so I'm also a trial and error person. So the first times I do it doesn't work so well, but that, you kind of, as you go, you create, okay, so I created the way that I believed that I could kind of teach more groups. But the fact is that in the beginning, that's exactly what happened, is like these people were dancing with me all the time, because also I was teaching myself how to lead. So actually a couple of the followers from that group, I mean, I have not seen so very many followers in Portugal that good since then, to be honest, because it's just we were so intensely in it. And we were, and because my process is about, let's get to the details. So it was like, figure out how this really works. And so it was a lot of like, let's figure out this connection and and this kind of thing. And why do we do this? And why does this happen when I do that? And if I do that, does something else happen? And, this kind of process. Yeah. And so, it's a process that now the different generations that have come through, you start taking that for granted, and I see people nowadays, they don't really go through their own learning process. You go to class, you learn in class, then you go social dance. But there's not as much digging in, on a personal level, from like, hey, let's get together and let's friggin' work this out, let's work on this. You don't see that as much anymore. Like there needs to be some kind of outside motivation that gets students to do that, like if it's going to be a contest or if it's going to be, this kind of thing, then you kind of get that. But from us at the beginning, it was just an internal motivation from each and every one of us to make something happen out of nothing. And so that group is really special. And, a couple of them are still dancing, others not so much, but it was really special times to have a dream and a hope, and music and companionship, and there's nothing to lose,
Yeah.
Nothing to lose.
you rise up an entire country. It's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, because you get the domino effect. So it's like, you teach, I started the scene in Porto and then in Lisbon. And then from that, some people that I taught in Lisbon who left my school and started theirs. And then I left Porto. And so the people that I had taught in Porto when I had to start their own thing. And then some other people, cut off from that and started theirs. So that's, that's the natural order of like how things start to move. But it started with this little seed of, 8 people who were willing to be fools and dance on the streets with people looking at them like, what on earth is wrong with you? But we were just so intoxicated with the process,
And it's beautiful to dance outside of Lisbon or Porto. Or even in Algarve in the south. It's so beautiful place. It would be so dumb to not do it.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. Rich. So it's a big part of the community. It always has been. But
After that, do you turn in full time to be a swing teacher? Or?
Yeah, so that took, let's see, when I first started, I was teaching English. And it was one of those things that like each year I asked at the school to teach fewer hours of English, so that I could, because this thing was starting to eat my life,
Yeah, okay.
So when I saw that it was possible to take the jump and know that I could sustain myself, I left the English teaching behind and just started doing this. But then I was running 2 schools. I was running the school in Porto and I was running the school in Lisbon, and then starting to organize, workshops, and then the Atlantic Swing Festival, and I really killed myself. I mean, I really literally almost killed myself, literally. That's what I believe my pulmonary embolism was about. It was really my body going, hey, this is not sustainable. It's too much. This doesn't work. And it was at that time. So, I started, this all started in 2007. In 2012 is when I actually started officially the business, swing station. So I had the school in Porto and the school in Lisbon, and in 2014 is when my body said, this doesn't work. And that's, and I knew I had felt it coming for a while. That was like, to be honest, panic attacks were something regular for me. There was a lot of anxiety. There was too much. It was wake up in the morning. That's all I'm doing, until I teach. And then after I teach, I come home and I'm still working, it's consumed my life in a way that wasn't healthy for me at all. And it's not that I'm saying I regret it. Like it created what it created, but I learned a lot from what I believe was my mistakes in the way that I acted towards myself. Not, and that I know came across sometimes in the way that I would be with other people, because if you're not well yourself, you're living on this like stress thing of, you're always working. It's hard to be really, really good, always good for other people, and that's when you can, when I could see that starting to come out, that at certain situations I couldn't handle because I was just at the end of my rope, and that's when like, boom, pulmonary embolism. And I was like, yeah, I am at the end of my rope and I can't take care of my own self right now. So after that was when I realized like, yeah, I need to cut back. What do I do? And I decided to close my school in Porto.
Yeah.
Because by that time, for a couple of reasons, like I love Porto and there's so many things that I miss about it. And, close friends that I have that are not in the swing dance scene are in Porto. I don't have close friends in Lisbon. I don't know many people outside of the swing dancing scene. But the weather in Porto is not very good for somebody who grew up in Los Angeles, and it was starting to get to me. I was there for about 9 or 10 years. And so Lisbon felt more like the weather that I grew up with, this kind of temperature and this, well, now it's super hot, but, but this kind of thing was what I was used to. And then it just felt like a bit easier to grow things in Lisbon, because there's more people, right? Yeah. And so I just was like, I need to focus on one. This is what's kind of happening with me. Okay, I'm gonna stay in Lisbon and give it a go. And so so that's what I did. By 2015, I was only in Lisbon, but I was still in the super slaving mode because of, doing the festivals, and now let's do that festival and let's do the blues festival, and let's do, it's like if you don't have a off switch, you can go forever until you die. So it's really hard. It's something that I've been learning a lot in my life, is putting boundaries and being able to say, hey, no, that's not for me. That maybe is for somebody else. I don't have to do everything. I don't have to be. And now there's enough people in the scene. Like for the last years, it's enough other people working in the scene that, I don't need to be that one anymore. So I'm taking much more of a back seat nowadays. But
and did you teach internationally too?
Yeah.
So it's a mix of running a school between two big cities.
Running the events.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, running the monthly events between, in two cities, until I cut down and it was only one city, but still monthly events, and then Atlantic Swing Festival, Atlantic Blues. We did something, some other small events here and there, like small Babble workshop or small these things. So it's just a lot of organizational work. Plus teaching, I was teaching, every night. We had our show group, so we would do shows, so it was choreographing and running that group and doing the shows. And, it's just, I right now, because I'm in a completely different mode, I look back and how the hell did I do it? I don't really know. I don't really know how I did it, but, I wasn't completely alone. I did have help. I've had somebody working full time for me the last years, and then I had a couple people helping here and there part time with different things. So I wasn't completely alone, but still, it's a lot. And I I don't think everybody always has an idea of what goes on behind the scenes, because there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of costs that people don't have a clue of. So it's a beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to create this, but there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears behind it.
Of course.
So, no, it is no regrets. It was what it was. It created what it created, and I'm really happy that, that all of this came from it, and I'm happy that I learned from the hard way, because that's my way. I learned the hard way, kind of where my boundaries are. And what is healthy and not healthy for me. So, but yeah, in the last years, then I kind of cut back. It's been kind of a process of that for me personally, to cut back more and more. So actually, Atlantic Swing Festival, the last edition was 2019, but that was even before we knew about COVID. I already knew I wasn't going to do another edition. There's other people in Portugal organizing festivals, and so I felt like, okay.
It's been like 10 years festival, no?
That was the 9th. It's been 11, I think 10 or 11 years. That was the 9th event, because I started to do like every other year. But then I just knew that like my time was done. And and the reason why I was doing all those things was there wasn't anything, If you look at the reason why, for me, my whole thing was there was nothing. And so I was the person to create something, and nobody knew about Lindy Hop in Portugal. So I needed to do something to bring people to Portugal so they met the scene. And I wanted people in the scene to meet dancers because I felt that was important, so that you don't get into your own little bubble, but that you understand how to social dance with people from other countries and other cultures too. And so these were really important things for me, because they were part of my experience. And so in organizing these events and doing things, I was the one to like get things started, but I realized I'm not the one to keep things going long term. That's not my job. That's not my place. I had a certain place in this history of swing dancing in Portugal. I brought blues into Portugal. I wasn't the one who took it forward. I kind of passed it on to people who got excited about it. But I felt like that was something that needed to be introduced as well. So I see that that's really been my role.
to impulse.
Yeah, and then those things need to be delivered to the next generation.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and that's how I feel now, is like there's capable people with passion.
So now you are the old-timer of Portugal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the old timer of Portugal. Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's the other thing that kind of happens too, is as you work more and more, you actually end up, that was the thing I started seeing, is I started all of this so that I could dance. And then at a certain point I looked and I was like, I'm the one who's dancing less. I'm the one who's not getting asked to dance because people are scared to dance with me. You know, it's like all of a sudden I looked and I was like, wait a second, you know, this isn't what I did this for. You know, and over the last couple of years, you know, this thing came into me of like, this is not, I want something else out of this now. It's time, it's another phase for me. Mm-hmm. It's another phase. I want a different thing from this. And so I'm slowly, I don't want to stop teaching. I love teaching. I love dancing. But I don't want to organize anymore. Yeah, I'm moving on to other things. Yeah.
You've done your part very brilliantly. And now, if we put the COVID situation on a side, now imagine you can go dance everywhere on the planet. Which place do you choose? Which events you want to go?
God, it's a hard question because I haven't thought about this for a year and a half, you know. I would love to go to Cowbell again. I want to go dance Balboa. I want to dance Balboa. I want to dance in Los Angeles. I want to dance in Southern California. That's where I would go if I could. If I could go dance anywhere right now, that is definitely where I would go. If there was no COVID and everything was the same, I would go there and I would dance for sure.
Have you ever been in South Korea?
No.
No, the Balboa scene and swing scene is growing up so much.
Yeah.
Maybe the most developed in the world since 2 or 3 years. It's now.
Yeah,
amazing.
Huge. Yeah, no, I've never been, but I don't have at this point. I don't have a big drive to go there. I'm looking for a different feeling from the scene, and I guess also is I just want to dance with some of my friends from back in that are just amazing to dance with, and feels, I mean, there are a few people in Europe with who you can dance with more counterbalance and with more of that kind of feeling that you get, but it's not so many, and you know, and there's feels amazing. You know, and I would love to be able to dig into that more and to have to you know, improve my way of dancing in that kind of feeling. But when I go there, I mean, one of my most favorite people to dance with is Jacob. Lindy, but maybe you don't know, but Jacob is an amazing Lindy Hop dancer.
Yeah, really.
Amazing. So like there's some people there. Justin Zillman, that maybe people don't know. He's been around for a long time. He's a very unique, very special, very has his very own way of dancing, but I love dancing with Justin. So like there's a certain people in Southern California that I mean, there's way more than that, but you just get a feeling there that, and because I haven't seen them for some years and I would love to dance with them, that's the first place I think about that I would like to go and see my family. Yeah.
Okay. And on your journey in swing dance, and you built a school, you organize a big international festival. You are a foreigner in this country. Is there sometimes some issues you met because you are not from this country, or because you are a woman? Do you have some, because doing all that at this time just by yourself, it could be at the time be seen not well.
Yeah, I don't know. Some small situations here and there, but in general, I feel like, the people who came to learn from me couldn't care less. That's what it felt like. They couldn't care less if I was teaching as a lead for years, and I taught I taught men how to lead, and I taught some women who wanted to learn how to lead and not be a follower. They also had classes. So it's like nobody didn't ever seem to be that much of a deal.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I think that's been a positive thing in the scene, because in other words, the scene started with this thing of like, seeing a woman leading, and so I've always, the people who have worked with me, I've always encouraged them to learn the other side, because that's what I did, and that's what gave me a more complete picture of, more complete idea and feeling for both Lindy Hop and Balboa, was knowing how to do both. And so people who I have taught how to teach, I've always told them like that's something really important. And so I think in some ways it's not so strange in the scene in Portugal to have that. And like more and more, actually in the last year or so before COVID, at Swing Station, I just came to the conclusion, I mean, it's like this, you're teaching partner dances, and you have, in general, a lot of women who want to learn, and not so many men who want to learn. Okay. And most women want to be followers.
Yeah.
And most men don't really know don't know what they're getting into, but they're like, oh, normally we do the lead. Okay, we do the, this kind of thing. You go into the traditional roles, whatever. This is a very poor business model if you look at it like this, because we had can't tell you how many classes we couldn't open because we didn't have enough partners. Yeah. And I looked at the situation and I said, well, this doesn't make any sense. Not only in a business standpoint does it not make sense, because I have people who want to be clients and want to pay us, and I'm saying no.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it also doesn't make sense because I have people who want to dance and I'm telling them, no, that's not. And I am a woman and I didn't have a partner. How can I say no? The way that it felt like to me is like, how can I say no to other women who don't have a partner? I didn't have a partner, and I'm the one who started this, and I did it. So we just took the decision that what we would do from then on is every beginner's class that we opened, we would just tell them, this is the situation. Normally we have more women than men who want to take classes. Normally, and it's all variable, but normally the women would like to be followers. Mm-hmm. So that means we tend to have a lot of followers. So if you want to take classes with us and you want to be a follower, you need to know that you will probably have to do a little bit of both in the class, because otherwise you will be stuck not dancing some of the time. So if you accept that you're going to learn a little bit of both sides, then you can come in the class. If you don't accept that, we don't really know what, mm-hmm. You might not want to come to this class because this is the only way it's functioning. So we kind of changed around the way that we were doing things. And all of a sudden it was really beautiful, because we had these classes where it was completely out of balance. And as a teacher, you're looking, oh my God, what do I do with this? But we just found ways to be like, okay, so you're gonna stay with this partner, and then you're gonna jump, you're gonna lead, and then you're gonna follow, then you're gonna move, then you're gonna lead, and we just changed the way that we did things. And we didn't control it that much, because naturally what happened is some of the people who just couldn't deal with learning both sides, because that is a difficult thing, just naturally stayed in one role. And some of the people didn't mind at all and actually loved learning both sides. And so they just would jump. They would see the need and they would jump. They would be like, oh, somebody's out. I'll go and grab you. And then we had guys who had no problem in learning how to follow. There was just we just took out all of the taboo about it. We took out all of the preconceived notions about it. And so people were coming into a learning situation just to do, and it was kind of like, you're allowed to be here in any way you want to be here. This is the situation. So if you want to dance and not sit out very long, it's better if you do both sides, but we're not going to force anybody who doesn't feel like it, because we do know that in terms of a learning capacity, not everybody has that learning capacity. So
it's great.
It ended up being really beautiful to watch how the groups coalesced in a different way, how they connected in a different way. And so many times you have groups where the the girls know the guys, and the guys know the girls, but the guys don't know each other, and the girls don't know each other, you know? Just because you're stuck in these roles of like men are leads and women are followers, right? And this totally turned that on the head because they were all interacting with each other. So guys were dancing with guys, girls were dancing with girls. So you have a beginner's class where they're knowing all of each other.
Yeah.
You know, which created such a different spirit in the group because it created a spirit, kind of a more unified spirit that when you had like tons of extra followers in the class, they were all willing to kind of negotiate the thing because they all liked each other. There was none of this, you didn't bring your partner, you don't have a partner, so we don't, you know, do you know what can happen? So it was really nice to see. And then just naturally, classes as they went along, people who just couldn't deal with that or who wanted to learn a different way would naturally get filtered out, and then you would be left with the people who just really wanted to be there and learn and really wanted to be part of it and really felt part of it and really wanted to be part of the group that they were creating together. You know, so it's something that we ended up doing without knowing what was actually going to come from it, and it ended up being very positive. But this was only in like the last year before COVID hit, so we didn't have enough time to see it kind of long term.
It's pop up everywhere. The switch thing in the role in the dance, they switch a lot. A lot of schools propose that now, and it's nice. Even for beginners to have some ideas of the other role. It's really important. In my own story, I've learned that really late.
Yeah, most people,
I regret it, really. Yeah. But it's like that. But it's a good way. And I'm pretty sure you have a group of people who starting to see each other after the class or outside the class.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, but that's since the beginning. That's always been part of the Portuguese scene. Is go to class, have a beer, you know, this kind of thing, and very heavily on the social side, very heavy on the kind of community connection side, very much so. Yeah.
Thank you, Abeth. We are going to approach the end. Before, is there something you want to say out loud?
To say out loud. I don't know. I came really empty to this conversation. I had no idea what was going to, you know, beautiful. That's jazz. That's jazz. I don't know. I feel, God, this is making me miss, it's making me miss being in, you know, seeing people. Seeing people, being part of it, traveling and teaching and connecting with people in this way that, you know, that was so much a part of my life for some years, and now, you know, I've been a hermit for the last year and a half, you know, and so it's been beautiful to talk to you and feel this, and it gets me, you know, I really believe in this music, and I really believe in these dances, and I do hope that they continue, and because I believe in the power of these art forms to point us back to ourselves, to help us to know ourselves in a different way, because you learn. I mean, one of the most beautiful things for me in teaching, and you know, I also teach Pilates and movement classes and a couple other things, but is watching people growing into themselves, because that's what happens is as you explore different things, you explore different sides of yourself. We're all a multiplicity of many different things. And so you find this thing in you that it wasn't separate from you. It was actually part of you that you've been able to grow and water and make bloom. And I see so many people who all of a sudden, you know, you see them changing, you see their face change, you see the way that they move changes, you see the way that they carry themselves around people changes, you see I see the change in confidence in some people, just knowing that, hey, I can move to music, and I can move to music with another person, you know, and I think this exploration of yourself and and your exploration of yourself in community is something that's so important that it's really, I mean, to me, this is public health.
Yeah, pretty much.
These are some of the things in the discussion of public health that have been left to the side. So many people, I know people in the dance scene who have gone downhill because this has been taken from them, and so, I hope that in our world we come to see health in a totality. Mental health, physical health, spiritual health. This is part of our spirit. The moving to music with other people is moving in rhythm with your own heartbeat and your own soul and it's your nervous system connecting to another nervous system. And when we connect nervous systems together, we actually end up co-regulating our cardiovascular system, our respiratory system. We co-regulate our immune system. So this is essential for our health. So I think about this in this terms of what we're living nowadays, but also in terms of our own unique self-expression. We need outlets for artistic self-expression, and if we can connect ourselves to the foundation of what jazz is and what it was born to be, which was really a self-expression of a people who were oppressed, and if we keep that in our minds and we keep that in our spirits and we celebrate that and we strive to express ourselves the same way as remembering how people took the chance to express their own selves in a time where they weren't recognized for being full people, and I think it's so important to hold on to this beauty we see in parts of our history, and this beauty we see in people who have gifted us with culture and art and beauty, and if we can take that forward and put our own voice into that, we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. We're part of something that's in the collective consciousness that to me elevates the collective consciousness on so many levels. So yeah, I don't know, I'm hoping for days where these kinds of things come back.
Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot. Wow, it was really nice to talk to you, and thank you for all the things you've done here and somewhere else.
Thank you for asking me. Appreciate it.
Blablaswing, 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 Blablaswing.